Is Isak going to be available for game week 38? Who are the best Saliba replacements? And importantly, who are the players to buy that are going to make us win our mini leagues and have the best overall ranks? We're going to be covering off all of that in today's game week 38 team selection video, the final one of the season. It is devastating to say that, but I'm looking forward to going through my team with 2 free transfers available. So as always, if you're looking forward to it, make sure to drop a like on the video and of course hit that subscribe button. It is never too late to do so. Enough waffling, let's get into today's video. So first up, taking a look at my current game week 38 team. We got to see who are the players that are absolutely fine to keep and those that we got to sell. And I've got 2 free transfers available and 0.9 million in the bank. And we got to kick things off with Alexander Isak because this was one of my captaincy picks going into the final game week. And it is so frustrating that he is now a major doubt going into the final game week. Now, it's worth noting, I am recording this Friday morning, and as of now, we've had some journalists come out and suggest that there is a 50-50% chance of Isak playing. That doesn't really help us. And we have had the photos from the Newcastle training session where Isak wasn't pictured. We kind of were expecting that. Now, he has been announced in Sweden's fixtures for June in the squad, so that is some glimmer of hope, and we know that Newcastle basically have to win this game to guarantee a top 5 finish. So I do feel like if Isak has any sort of way of playing, Eddie Howe is just going to play him knowing that he's got the whole summer off and he doesn't necessarily need him after this game week 38 fixture. But as of right now, we have no clarification. Will Eddie Howe give us anything in the press conference? You can guarantee he will not. So unfortunately, it's going to be a bit of a waiting game up until that Sunday deadline to see if we get any sort of idea whether he's going to be involved with the squad. So Isak is the huge problem for my team. The other 3 players that I think are a bit of a problem is going to be the likes of Kevin De Bruyne. Now, Man City haven't been in their free-flowing self. De Bruyne obviously missed that sitter in game week 37. With Man City still having something to play for, I still think he's perfectly fine to keep for this game week. I imagine he does start and probably is going to try and rectify the miss that he had in game week 37. But when we're looking at a 1 game week punt, do I look at De Bruyne away against Fulham and say to myself, that is a key player that I want? Probably not. And with the price point he is right now and other options available around that area, I feel like selling Kevin De Bruyne just allows me to go to any midfielder that I want to who has a bit more of a higher ceiling. So as of right now, I think the team is actually okay. It's worth noting, I think Crystal Palace versus Liverpool is going to be quite a goal-scoring game, and we'll touch on that in a minute. So I wouldn't actually care if I need to bring in one of these players into the starting 11. But Isak, a problem. De Bruyne, a problem. Outside of that, I think the team looks okay, but let's talk about my plans. So, of course, with there being only 1 game week left, we can just completely tunnel vision game week 38. We don't have to look anything after it. And to be honest with you, I don't even want to look at underlying numbers for players. I really think game week 38 is one of those unique game weeks where goals happen in these fixtures. It's been proven over the last 5 or 6 seasons that the game week 38 fixtures do just naturally bring more goals because teams are on the beach. They're trying to put in a great performance in their final home games of the season. So what I've tried to do here is just kind of put a bit of perspective on each fixture to understand who are the teams that we want to target and who are the ones that actually have something to play for. So right now I've highlighted in red the teams that I realistically would buy players from in the final game week of the season. So I feel like Bournemouth are a good team to invest in because they have a great fixture against Leicester. But I would make the argument that there's no real thing to play for Bournemouth apart from their final home game of the season. But I think the fixture itself is so good that you could kind of ignore the fact that there's no context around the game. I've highlighted Liverpool because even though there's no context, I feel like there could be just goals in this game. I think Crystal Palace had their game week 37 fixture at home. I think they've bid farewell to the fans, of course, who supported them in the FA Cup final. I wouldn't be surprised if they rock up at Anfield and just think to themselves, let's just get the season done. I see no reason why they have to put up a resolute performance against Liverpool. I think Liverpool owe a performance to their fans on the final game week. So I think Liverpool is still a good team to buy from. I think Villa is still a good team to buy from because this is the first one that we're talking about that has context. Villa must win for a chance of a top 5 finish, and that is then not even guaranteed. They do rely on another team, Newcastle or Chelsea, to slip up. So you know Aston Villa are going in as a cup final. Man United, on the other hand, 4 days after the Europa League final. Now, weirdly enough, I'd actually prefer Aston Villa players if United won the Europa League, because I think they would turn up, present the trophy, all the fans are jubilant, and they wouldn't care about this fixture. But now, if I was Amorim, I would not dare rolling out a second string team against Aston Villa knowing that they could get turned over after what we saw in that Europa League final. I would like to think that he is going to give them a rocket up their ass for the final game and say to them, you've got to prove yourself to these fans on the final day of the season. So this could be a bit more trickier for Villa, but I still fully expect them to get the victory. And I still think if you don't have triple Villa, that is a great investment. Then we got Newcastle. Now, this is the first one where I think there is context and also a fantastic fixture. Newcastle win, they get top 5. Very simple for them. They win, they get Champions League football. So it is very, very clear. Whereas Villa win, don't guarantee themselves top 5. But also I think the Everton game is good. Possible injury to Branthwaite. We know Tarkowski's out. And Everton have just had their final game at Goodison Park. I look at Everton very similar to that of Crystal Palace. They had their home game in game week 37. What is the purpose to rock up and put their best performance of the season? I wouldn't even be surprised if we see a bit of a rotated Everton team against a Newcastle team that are playing this like a cup final. So Newcastle still fantastic to buy from. The other two is going to be Arsenal and Brighton. Now, Arsenal is a really difficult one because I can see Arteta rolling out a second string team to give minutes to those that haven't. Equally, I can see him try and have the best finish to the season possible. Similar to the Bournemouth situation, I think the fixture is just too good to ignore. So I think Arsenal's a great buy. And finally, Brighton. Now, Brighton are an interesting one because if the chips fall the right way for them, they could end up with Conference League football. So they still have something to play for. And Spurs, 4 days after the Europa League final, the Europa League team was almost a second string team in parts. They didn't have the likes of Kulusevski, Maddison, and they were on their last legs at times in that Europa League final. So God forbid what Spurs team rocks up. And because they've won the Europa League final, nobody cares if they lose this game against Brighton. They're just going to be delighted they've got a trophy. So I think this is a fantastic fixture for Brighton. And I do think there are a few players like Danny Welbeck that you could target for your teams. So outside of that, I just want to quickly touch on Forest Chelsea. If Chelsea win, they guarantee themselves top 5. If Forest win, it's still unlikely they get top 5 because a lot of things would have to happen for them to end up 5th. So you know Chelsea are just going to try and get that victory. And what I put up there about Man City is a win or a draw confirms top 5. So we could even see them, if they go 1-0 up, just making it really, really tight because they would have to concede 2 and lose the game to fall out of the top 5. So I don't think the Man City game is going to be full of goals, to be honest with you. So those are the teams that I would target. I think it's quite clear, and we'll talk about the players who we actually should buy from. But I wanted to give a bit of context on where we really should be focusing our transfers. So I wanted to cover off the Game Week 38 Hot Topics. And again, if I miss any, please do pop them in the comment section. I'll be sure to get to them. But I want to make sure I cover off these sections. A lot of people are asking about them. Apologies if I have spoken about them already, but I want to make sure I have covered them off. So first up, what do we actually do with Alexander Isak? I've spoken about how he's in my team, but what do we do? So we've seen that there's a 50-50 chance of him playing. That does not help us in the slightest, but we just got to run with it. We know Eddie Howe's going to tell us nothing. I can predict that already in today's press conference. So if you are in a blessed position where you can wait as close to the deadline as possible, I think that is the best thing to do. Every team kicks off at the same time. We know that basically social media is rife with early team leaks. We might get lucky and get told that Isak is starting or not. And then you've got to have a plan. I think if we get no news regarding Isak, I would just keep him and hope for the best. However, I do think if you're in a position right now where you don't have triple Villa, I think Isak to Watkins is just a very easy move, and I think the fixture is very good. Otherwise, if you want to be a bit different, I think Evan Nielsen is a nice sideways move. So I think really, no news, you keep Isak. Unless your bench really can't hack if Isak doesn't play. And I even think someone like a Mateta is fine to come in for that Liverpool game. I do think there will be goals in that game. Otherwise, I think you pivot to Watkins, and then if not, Evan Nielsen. In terms of the best Saliba replacements, because some managers out there can't afford to just bench Saliba this week, I think you want to stick with Arsenal, and I do think the Arsenal defence is going to be highly owned. I wouldn't be surprised if one Arsenal defender this week even doesn't give you a green arrow. I think double Arsenal defence is where you will actually benefit from it. I think Ben White is a really nice differential. We've had confirmation that Saliba is ruled out officially, and Jurgen Timber has gone for surgery. So we basically are going to see Luis Skelly or Zinchenko at left back. We're probably going to see Kivio and Calaflori, I imagine, at centre back. And then I think we'll see Ben White at right back. So he's a great differential. If he plays at right back and sometimes goes up the field, that could be a real high upside pick. If you're looking outside of Arsenal, then I wouldn't look too far away from Kirkes, where I've spoken about it. I don't think there's much context for that Bournemouth game, but if I'm looking at a player that has attacking potential, 2 goals, 6 assists for him this season, and clean sheet odds, Kirkes is a standout pick. Otherwise, if I'm looking for a team that just absolutely need the win, Livramento would be my guaranteed pick. I don't see Everton scoring in this game where Newcastle have everything to play for. Next up, a bit of an interesting one here. What will FPL managers forget? Well, I think not the active ones, but if you're watching this right now, you got to check this. Make sure you don't have any chips available to use in game week 38. Now, you want to go onto the pick team section, and at the top, it will say all of the 5 chips available to you, and it will tell you when you have played them underneath. If one of them is highlighted, it means you still haven't played it. Thank me later. But make sure you do use all your chips. You're basically just wasting an amazing opportunity in game week 38. If you do have a chip available, pop it in the comment section. I'll try and help you out on what to do with them. If you have more than one, then I'm sorry to say you can't use 2 in one game week. Hopefully you knew that already. We'll talk about them in the comment section. Get in there. Next up, who are the top 3 game week 38 differentials? Because if you're chasing mini leagues right now, chasing rank, I think differentials are really fun on the final game week. So number 3, I've got Martinelli. Minutes have been good recently. If you're looking at an alternative to Bukayo Saka, I think Martinelli is the one. I also want to chuck Havertz in the hat, but I have no idea whether he actually does play or not. Arteta's been quite bullish in the press conference, but I think Martinelli is a really nice differential. Number 2 is going to be Danny Welbeck. I honestly think this Spurs game is going to be an amazing opportunity for Brighton to score goals. I have no idea what Spurs team turns up. I have no idea what the environment's going to be like for Spurs fans. I think they're just going to be in party mode, which probably does make the Spurs game quite sloppy, to be honest with you. So I think Danny Welbeck could be one of the highest scoring forwards this week. And then finally got Evan Nielsen. Now, probably a bit controversial here because he's one of the most bought players, but I want to make sure you guys know he's still only 4% owned in the game. So he is still one of those players that is being bought by loads, but his ownership was so low that he's still going to remain below 10%. So he still is a great differential. Don't be put off by him, even though a lot of people are bringing him in. Finally, just generally, who are the best players to buy from each position? So goalkeeper, unless you're predicting a penalty save, they're all going to score pretty similar if they do just keep the clean sheet. So I'm back in Newcastle for a clean sheet, so hence why I've got Nick Pope there. I think double Newcastle defence is actually a great move this week. In terms of defenders, I've touched on him. I think Kirkes has the highest ceiling this week. Midfielder, boring to say, but it still is going to be Saka on penalties. If he does start against Southampton in a strong Arsenal team, I can see a comfortable Arsenal win here. And forward is going to be Evan Nielsen. Touched on a few of the others, but I think Evan Nielsen just has that high upside in a great fixture against Leicester. So moving into my game week 38 team selection, and a reminder, I've got 0.9 million in the bank and 2 free transfers, and of course I'm not using them on my goalkeeper or defense. However, I've got a headache when it comes to my goalkeepers and defense. So currently right now we're going for the combination of the double Arsenal defense, Raya and Kivior, Vardiel away against Fulham, and Livramento at home against Everton. So honestly, only Livramento is the one locked in, I'm going to be honest. I think Livramento is a fantastic pick this week. I've discussed that. Now, double Arsenal defence, I feel like I have to go for double Arsenal defence because one of them, as I discussed, I just don't think is going to actually give me any sort of rank increase. You kind of need the double up to justify it. If I go for one Arsenal and one Aston Villa, then I really am spreading myself, which is great, but it doesn't really do too much for me. I kind of need the double Arsenal defence to get any benefit from that potential clean sheet. And even though Arsenal have nothing to play for, do I still expect them to just be so much better than Southampton? I do. So I'm going for the double Arsenal defence, I think. And I'm going for Vardiel just for a few things. One, if he plays at left back, we know his potential there and he's so good on the bonus points. We know Man City have to win or draw, so it could be a really cagey affair, and we might just see them win by like 1-0 possibly. Not ruling that out at all. My headache is that I'm not going to play Munoz, even though I do think there could be goals in this game. I'm kind of already thinking, well, there's no chance of a clean sheet for Munoz, so I'm basically bringing him in for attacking returns. He's great for them, but that isn't enough for me to go there. I think Villa keep a clean sheet. I know I spoke about how Man United losing the Europa League final is not good for Aston Villa, because I just can't believe Amarim's going to tell his players to just chuck the game. Whereas if they won the Europa League final, I would expect them to just be like, you know what, go out, have fun, we got the trophy, the fans are going to be happy regardless. These fans are out for blood, so they cannot just rock up with a second string team. But I'm just going to go, because they lost the Europa League final, for this combination. But I fancy a Villa clean sheet. I'm going to be honest with you. That double pivot of Onana and Kamara, I think is going to be good enough to lock down Man United. But I just don't know how to squeeze them into this team, because double Arsenal defence is the only way to benefit from that defence. So I think I'm going to lock myself into this. But I just would not be surprised at all if I see a 6-pointer here and an 8-pointer from Konsa. I could be tempted to change on the deadline live stream, but as of right now, that is going to be my goalkeeper and defense combination. So moving into my game week 38 midfielders, and as you can see, I am planning on selling Kevin De Bruyne and bringing in Saka. I've just highlighted that at the bottom right there. So look, I think De Bruyne could be a great differential. I think he's going to play. It's his final Man City game. They got to win or draw. The context is great, but the fixture is okay. I think Fulham will concede goals and De Bruyne could do well, but I want a player that has true high upside and a player that is on penalties. And Saka offers exactly that. Now, I'm going to be honest. I have to wait until as close to the deadline as possible, because we might get some crazy news that Arteta has actually rotated this Arsenal team. And if that is the case, I'm just going to completely avoid the Arsenal game. I'm not going to touch them unless I want to go for a rogue pick like a Martinelli. But as of right now, I think Saka is still the midfielder that I want to own. I've got the cash cow in De Bruyne to go there. I don't have any other pressing matters in my team in order to not go there. So I think Saka is going to be my transfer in. And alongside that, we got Rodgers away against Man United, which we discussed, I think is a good fixture. Mbeumo away against Wolves. I mean, Wolves just conceded a hatful of goals against Palace. I think that's an okay fixture. And then we got Mo Salah at home against Crystal Palace, which again, as I discussed, I think there will be goals in that game just based on the context of everything. On the bench, we've got Ismaila Sarr. If he comes in a situation, it's actually not the end of the world, but I could make the argument to put Konsa first sub, because as I discussed, that Aston Villa clean sheet to me just screams out it's going to happen. But Saka, as we discussed, is my player in. Now, in terms of alternatives out there, if I don't go for Saka, we discussed, if we get the leak that Saka's not playing and Martinelli's playing, I could be tempted by that as a bit of an upside pick. I could also keep De Bruyne, which isn't ruling out at all. Otherwise, I think I would go for somebody like an Anthony Gordon. I think I would want to get myself another piece of that Newcastle attack. And I really think there is an opportunity for goals in that game where they're chasing the top 5 finish. So Gordon is the other alternative that I'm looking for. But as of right now, I'm really happy with Saka as a pick. And yes, it is a little bit template and it's a little bit boring, but I do like him. I will say, Jarrod Bowen, one of the most bought players going into this week, I'm just not there. I think West Ham could easily just put in a below par performance and maybe win 1-0 and Bowen doesn't rack up the goals. He is obviously doing the business right now, but Bowen for me just isn't a game week 38 player that I want to bring in. Maybe that is a little bit controversial, but he just isn't on my radar right now. Moving into my game week 38 forwards, and as you can see, at the time of recording, I'm planning on keeping Isak and hoping for the best. But as I discussed, I will be waiting right up until that deadline to decide exactly what to do with him. So I am planning on selling Mateta and bringing in Evan Nielsen. That is my standout forward. I discussed, I really do think Welbeck is an incredible differential. And I also do think that, as I said, Watkins is a great pick. But I'm blocked off from Watkins because I already have triple Aston Villa. Now, Evan Nielsen, I think, is just the upside pick. I love him. Isak, we're hoping he plays. And Visser away against Wolves is just a player that I'm always going to play in a fixture like that. So we've got to talk about what happens if Isak is ruled out. Because what I could do is just do Isak to Evan Nielsen. And then I could just keep Mateta and play him away against Liverpool, which is perfectly fine. The other thing that I could do is, if I'm really not bullish on Palace getting anything in that game, but I do think there will be goals, is keeping Kevin De Bruyne, starting him, hoping for a farewell goal, and making 2 forward moves, and that would be Isak to Evan Nielsen, and then selling Mateta to Danny Welbeck. That is another move that I've considered. It means that I keep De Bruyne, but I don't think that's the end of the world, and it means that I'm making 2 forward transfers where I'm being really aggressive and being really bullish on that Brighton fixture against Spurs. But as of right now, I'm going to hope that Newcastle do confirm that Isak is playing. And if that does happen, this will be my team for game week 38. And I'm really happy about it. But let me know what you would do in the comment section. So the final decision is captaincy. And this is a really big one because it feels like a few weeks we've had situations where the scores have been pretty low. The template players have either done well, done bad. It doesn't really matter. And the captaincy has been the thing that has completely dictated what our rank has been. Now, in my situation, I'm 38k. I'm not delighted with the rank at all. We always speak about it. If we're playing for first, and that is it. Obviously, it's optimistic, but 38k, I'm not happy with. I want to try and have the best finish possible. And I look at the players that I have available to me right now. I'm going to rule out Isak because even if he gets confirmed fit, could he come off after 60 minutes? And Eddie Howe just said to him, give me 60 minutes and that's it. Most likely. So Isak's out the equation. So really the only players that I'm looking at for captaincy is going to be Salah, Saka, and maybe a wild punt on Evan Nielsen. Now, I'm just never going to pick a forward as my captain in the final game week of the season like Evan Nielsen because I just don't think it is worth it. Doesn't get the clean sheet point, doesn't get an additional point for a goal. So it does come down to Saka versus Mo Salah. There's only one winner, and it is going to be Mo Salah. Now, I'm really hoping that people look at the returns of Mo Salah recently and say to themselves, I can't trust this guy, and don't pick him, because I still think he's a standout pick. I'm really comfortable saying that there's going to be goals in this fixture. I'm almost certain of it. At home, final game against Anfield. They've won the league. I think Mo Salah is want to go out with a bang. I know he's on penalties. I know he's going to play 90 minutes. Could I see Saka play 60, 70 minutes and come off, similar to that of Newcastle game where they needed the win? I could absolutely see that. So for that reason, Salah for me is my captain. I think he's the standout pick this week, and I do think by the time we get to the deadline, people are just going to naturally default to Salah. If you're chasing rank, though, I do like Evan Nielsen as an upside pick. So that is the plan right now, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to lock in on this team. But of course, I will be live on the deadline, talking through all of the crazy things that we might get announced on that final day. Yes, guys, okay, so that's going to wrap up the final team selection of the season. I'm actually pretty devastated saying that. Now, look, it isn't the end of the content. Tomorrow, because the deadline's Sunday, I'm looking to do some sort of final video, something talking about maybe things we learned from the press conference or whatever. So that will be coming out Saturday morning, and I will of course be doing a deadline live stream on Sunday. So as always, make sure you are hitting that notification bell so you're alerted when I am going live. And if you enjoyed this video, please do drop a like, and of course any questions, please do pop them in the comment section. I'll be sure to get to them. Have an amazing day. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Take care. Cheers.